Welcome to the North Carolina Field Ministers Podcast, Changing Life, Changing Culture. This podcast offers a forum for field ministers in North Carolina to discuss their lives, their ministry, their impact on incarcerated neighbors, their viewpoints on issues that affect the currently and formerly incarcerated, and their perspectives on a variety of topics. Please note, the podcast does not officially represent the North Carolina Field Minister Program.
Hello, my name is Kirston Angell. I'm an inmate currently housed at Foothills Correction Institution in Morganton, North Carolina. In this episode of the Prison Pod, I'll briefly share a bit about my background, my prison experience, and how I personally experienced change through the gospel of Jesus Christ by taking advantage of all the educational and vocational programming made available to me at various prisons. I would also like to share why I believe it is absolutely necessary to educate and offer programming to the incarcerated, whether the programming is focused on ethical training and moral development, cognitive behavioral intervention programs, college degree pathways, or spiritual development programs.
This call is from a North Carolina correctional facility.
I grew up in a small town in the Piedmont Triad area of North Carolina. From a very early age, I was exposed to domestic violence, alcohol and drug use, and those things were something that was pretty much an inadvertently norm to me. I navigated these things from my early adolescence to my teenage years. Eventually, I quit engaging in sports and positive social things that teenagers often get involved in exchange for chasing drugs, money, and girls. I was in my junior year of high school when I committed a selfish crime that resulted in horrible assaults on two individuals and the death of someone else's loved one, a wound that time or time served could ever heal. I was sentenced to serve 31 to 41 years in the Department of Corrections when I was 16 years old. I've now been incarcerated for the last 18 years. However, with the help and encouragement of my family and many members of the Christian church, I dedicated myself to personal rehabilitation, reformation, and a renewal of both my mind and heart. After I committed the violent crime that landed me in county jail, I was placed in the Davie County Detention Center in Backside Isolation Cell 24. Due to my age, I couldn't be housed in the regular population pods. After 3 days of little interaction with anyone, I met a little old man named Dorman Brown. He was a kind minister from a local church who would make rounds throughout the jail, and he would share the gospel. He came to my cell and shared the gospel and I was convicted of my sin. I was broken up for what I had done. Mr. Brown showed me that the Bible teaches that there are none righteous, no, not one. No one who understands, no one who naturally sees God. He explained that all people are on the same playing field before God. We all have done wrong in our lives and broken God's righteous and holy commandments. For all have sinned and fallen short of the righteous perfection that God requires in obedience to his law. But God shows his love for us in that when we were sinners, Christ died for us. James 2:10 shows that whoever keeps the whole law but fails in one point has become guilty of all of it. He concluded by telling me that if I would repent and turn from my sin and confess with my mouth that Jesus is Lord and believe in my heart that God raised him from the dead, I'd be saved and forgiven for all my sins. This was the absolute greatest news I've ever heard. It was on July 7, 2006 that I made the decision to give my life to Christ because I knew I had no hope of being forgiven apart from his finished work at Calvary on my behalf. I felt the full weight of all the evil, the disobedient things I'd ever done through my entire life. I'd broken God's commandments and man's law, and I knew I deserved nothing but judgment. Yet God showed me his grace and mercy and gave me a chance to hear the gospel and accept it. It was then that I knew Jesus bore the penalty for my sins that I had committed and that he was giving me an opportunity to experience a new life in him. He lived the perfect life I could have never lived and died the death I deserved and paid the penalty on my behalf. Ever since then, I've strived consistently to live gratefully in light of that fact. From that point forward, Jesus began to work to transform my mind, heart, will, emotions, and even my very desires. This happens over a period of time through pursuing God through diligent study of his word, prayer, fellowship, and obedience to his command to help others come to know who he is. Though it can be tough at times, I trust in the words of Paul. Paul spoke in the letter to the Philippians that he who began a good work in them will bring it to completion at the day of Jesus Christ. This too is my hope. Now, People are usually skeptical when people say stuff like, I found God, he's changed my life, and things of that nature. It's even tougher for those of us behind the walls because of the bias through which the incarcerated are viewed, because we often seem to be incorrigible. As an incarcerated individual, I want people to believe me and give me the benefit of the doubt when I say that I've changed. However, I also acknowledge that my change must be demonstrated with action. Early in my sentence, I would tell people the changes I was experiencing. They would kind of shirk it off because they could only read or hear the words I was speaking. There was no evidence of action on my part. However, over the last 18 years, through rigorous study and discipline, I've acquired my GED, a 1-year diploma in computer information technology, a 2-year diploma of arts and biblical studies, a bachelor's degree in theological studies through the International Christian College and Seminary, another bachelor's degree in pastoral ministry with a minor in counseling and psychology through Southeastern Baptist Theological Seminary. I'm also a CRLA internationally certified tutor through the Learning Center at College of Southeastern. In addition, I've also completed anger management, thinking for a change, thinking for the future, walking the 12 steps with Jesus Christ, carpentry, electrical wiring, textiles, reupholstery, and veterinary technology, industrial sewing. I've also been a dog trainer with a New Leash on Life program. Now, I currently serve as one of 4 field ministers at Foothills Correction Institution, North Carolina. We've been deployed to our current facility for 26 months. While we delegate duties within the team, each one of us has our own particular area of expertise. We are corporately responsible for the Christian worship services on Sundays, serving in whatever capacities during Kairos, and for giving free weekend events, and the One Day with God camps. Personally, I've taught through an entire Christian apologetics class on Mondays in the vocational school area. I've taught through Thinking for Change curriculum 7 times in a 2-year span. Thinking for a Change is a cognitive behavioral intervention class that's geared towards teaching individuals how to interrupt the daily conflicts.
This call is from a North Carolina correctional facility.
Thinking for a Change is a cognitive behavioral intervention class geared towards teaching individuals how to interrupt the daily conflict cycle we go through in our thinking and provide a new positive way to manage conflict and handle situations. I've also facilitated various discipleship groups using curriculums like Avery Willis's Master Life, Robbie Gallaty's Growing Up, and Home Community Church's Multiply. I currently teach a Bible study on Tuesday afternoon to 25 men called The Bible from 30,000 Feet. This study was developed by Pastor Skip Heitzig and focuses on walking through the entire Bible in 59 lessons. I also co-facilitate another study which focuses on going through the entire Gospel of Mark in an expositional verse-by-verse fashion. In addition, I also teach basic guitar theory and technique classes in the therapeutic diversion unit on Monday and Wednesdays. I also host an incentive music program for regular population inmates who have been infraction-free for at least 6 months. In between these aforementioned classes and other assigned tasks, I respond to various requests from individuals seeking one-on-one counseling, prayer, and discipleship. Many people have asked, why educate people in prison? Why provide programming? Theories and opinions are going to abound, and many people see programs and educational opportunities provided for inmates as a joke or even as an unmerited reward for bad behavior. However, without taking the steps necessary to acquire the education that helped facilitate my change, I would have never actually changed, nor would anybody truly be able to see that I've changed. These classes helped shape the person I've become. God gave me a new heart and a new mind and a desire to better myself and learn all I can so I can better connect with others in hopes of leading them to Christ. The 3 greatest things that education has done for me is, first, it showed me that I do have the ability to learn. I never took school seriously, and I barely skated by in my classes as a youth. Taking classes gave me a sense of purpose and accomplishment, made my family very proud of me. This inspires me to continue no matter how tough it may seem. Second, I'm now equipped upon my release to step into almost any career path I desire. I've developed a wide set of both mental and practical skills I can use in the professional world. Third, and most importantly, I can now engage and better minister to others through a better sense of empathy, sympathy, and an experiential knowledge of the tougher parts of life. Education challenged me to examine my core values, question some commonly held thematic beliefs, and stereotypes that I held concerning others, and examine and challenge prevalent ideologies that many within our society use to further and divide us as a people and as a nation. There are many studies that have shown that education is the key to reducing recidivism. According to the National Institute of Justice report to the U.S. Congress, prison education is far more effective at reducing recidivism than boot camps, shock incarceration, or vocational training. The report goes on to say that other studies sponsored by Federal Bureau of Prisons find that the more educational programs successfully completed for each 6 months confirm lower recidivism rates. The exact figures indicating these inverse recidivism rates for degree recipients were associates at 13.7%, baccalaureates at 5.6%, and masters at 0%. In addition, higher education and seminary programming over the last 20 years have produced significant results in states like Louisiana and Texas. Angola was the first prison to offer a seminary degree program through the New Orleans Baptist Theological Seminary. It's equipped inmates for ministry service. Angola was deemed the bloodiest prison in America and was filled with murders and rapes. However, after a few years of men going through the seminary program and using the skills they learned to help others, the prison culture at Angola shifted drastically and became a much safer environment for all. The change was so drastic that it was blowing people's minds, including an appeals court judge who served as a volunteer at Angola. In 2004, Chris Fink wrote an article for Christianity Today and interviewed Bob Downing, a longtime volunteer in inmate ministries and an appeals court judge who, while serving as a district court judge in Baton Rouge, sentenced many men to Angola Penitentiary. As a volunteer, he witnessed the changes taking place at Angola firsthand. According to Mr. Downing, you could just see the joy on inmates' faces. Rapes have gone down and murders have all but disappeared. Nothing helps reduce the number of ex-convicts who return to prison, he says, like participating in a religious program while inside. Earning a high school equivalency degree in prison reduces the chance of returning by 4%. Having a job waiting on the outside is worth another 14%, he says. But participating in a religious program half the time they're locked up is good for another 36% reduction. Downing closes by stating the national repeat offender rate is 67%. Louisiana's is down to 50%. We must be doing something right. End quote. Of course, God ultimately deserves all the glory for all that's taking place in Angola. Another question arises. Why should society care? Why should you care? Well, first, as human beings, we're always learning, growing, and changing in order to adapt to our environments. Prison provides its own unique culture that most of the time is anything but positive. New offenders often learn the ropes of surviving the prison experience from other inmates, especially those who have been through the system a few times. This creates a cycle of further degradation if what the commonly called prison...
You have 60 seconds remaining.
This creates a cycle of further degradation if what the commonly called prison old heads are positing poor values, advice, or radical ideologies for the newcomers. This is why we need education, programming, and real spiritual transformation within our prisons. Is it possible that if you can impact and change one, then that one can do the same for somebody else? Absolutely. The reason for society to care is because most offenders will return to the very communities they left after being released from prison. Think about it. Would you rather have someone around your friends and families who have participated in programs that foster spiritual transformation, positive moral development, equips people with job skills, and teaches new ways of thinking? Or would you rather have a person leave prison after joining a gang, learning how to be a better criminal from other criminals, and return to the community they left and possibly commit worse acts than those that first landed them in prison? I find that the more I learn, the more I'm humbled by just how much I do not know. I believe that education is the key to reducing recidivism. Not only will education help prisoners secure better jobs upon release from prison, it will also help them see many differing worldviews and perspectives concerning life, morality, society, politics, government, religion, communication, and help them to develop better relationships. I've witnessed many men change for the better while incarcerated, and many who have been and continue to be successful after the release from prison. One day, I will be one of these men. I appreciate you taking the time to listen to this podcast, and I encourage you to get involved. If you would like to contact me, you may do so by writing me at Kirston, spelled Kirston, Angell, Angell, Opus number 0992615 at Foothills Correctional Institution, P.O. Box 247, Phoenix, Maryland 21131, or by opening an account at gettingout.com and sending me a text message. Again, I thank you for listening, and I hope you have a wonderful day.
You have been listening to the Prison Pod, a podcast not just for those in prison but for anyone who has been affected by incarceration. Ms. Valerie would love for you to write to her with your questions, comments, and show ideas. The address is Prison Pod, Post Office Box 294, Orono, Maine. 04473.